Hey, welcome back to the Happy Homeowner Outdoor Edition podcast. We're going to have some fun here today. I'm really excited to talk with Captain Paul Kim of Fish P&W Guide Service. We're going to talk about squiding. You guys may recognize these on a plate in a restaurant called calamari, right? When I first went squiding, I was like, these are crazy creatures. How do they look so different? And you're going to teach us about that. Not only how to catch them, but how to harvest them as well. So really good to see you in here again.
Yeah, thanks, Stan.
Yeah.
For having me back. It's been a few, but
It's been a little while.
Well,
Nothing going on.
Anytime I get around PK and of course Connor Martinis with John Sporting Goods, I love just being the moderator because I learn. I'm going back to school and I learned. We went out together. We got to go on my boat with PK lean cod fishing in the San Juans, and boy, this guy knows. He knows his way around the terrain. Yeah. We come up on this reef out of the middle of nowhere, and we were fishing in an area that we hadn't really fished before. And he's like, "Hey, I got this. You guys go get the gear." And he motors us right over, and he goes, "Okay, get him down right now." Yeah. And within minutes, I think we were done. And then he silently is in the back. We're processing our fish, and all of a sudden we hear, "Oh!" And in the back, and he ends up not only navigates the boat, but navigates himself into the biggest ling of the day. But always love getting out on the water with you. But we're going to learn about kind of a hidden gem in the Puget Sound today. Squiding in the Pacific Northwest. And so why don't you kind of teach us what these little critters are and then where we go about finding these guys?
Yeah, great. So not so much a new thing that has been in our Puget Sound, but really our fishery has really exploded in the recent years. And I think because of a lot of the blackmouth closures and just not a lot going on during the wintertime, that kind of necessitated or facilitated the audience where, hey, boat anglers are now starting to chase these things in our Puget Sound because it keeps us moving, it keeps us active, it doesn't allow us to winterize our boats, and they're a whole lot of fun. If you haven't tried it, whether it be on the piers or on a boat, I highly recommend it because it is a whole lot of fun, and it really gets you and your family and friends out together, and who doesn't want to spend more time on the boat? Absolutely. I've never heard of anyone complaining about that, right? So scientifically, these are known as loligo opalescens. Our friends in Canada, they call them opals. Okay. But they are also commonly known as market squid. And so these squid, we like to target them in the wintertime or in the fall and winter seasons because they are most prevalent at that time, and they're the largest at that time. They spawn just like steelhead and salmon do. They have a very short life cycle, between 9 to 11 months.
Oh wow!
And they will die.
Wow!
They put their eggs, spawn and die, just like a salmonid. Okay. Interesting. So very fascinating creatures. So scientists have done studies on them. Very low toxicity, high protein source, very stable within our Puget Sound waters, and so it offers a really fun fishery, as well as being absolutely delicious to eat on the table. So
Paul, if I go to Anthony's, for example, and I order calamari as an appetizer, is this what I'm getting, or is it a different type of squid?
Essentially, it probably is 90% of the time going to be a market squid that you're gonna get.
Okay.
So the origin, I don't know if it's U.S. or if it's abroad, but they're pretty prevalent, and a lot of the catches probably coming up from California, Oregon, serving end users like Anthony's and consumers like us.
Yeah, Hudson, my son's gone out and and caught them, and he brings them home and he just sautés them. Oh, and they're good.
They're delicious.
They're not as chewy as I thought they'd be.
And that's the key: is don't overcook them. You don't need to really overcook them. They're a little bit clearer, but once they just turn opaque or just a little white, then they're done. So
they're messy little creatures.
They can be. Yeah, they do ink you.
Tell us about that part of it when you're catching them, because you got to be careful. You're going to destroy your. Does it stain your boat, or
That's a great question. So I was running fiberglass boats for a number of years.
Okay.
So the last couple seasons we're running the Cat, and believe it or not, the aluminum is a lot easier to keep
Okay.
on top of it as long as you hose it down, pretty quickly at the end of the session, right?
Yeah.
And so we do have a little soft brush and some soap at the end of the day, non-toxic soap, and we just kind of give it a little rinse, and it's easy.
So Captain Paul Kim's pretty entertaining, especially during the November, December, January, February months where we don't have a whole lot going on. And so I love your Instagram. If you don't already follow him on Instagram, it's fishin, like FISHN _PNW. You want to follow him because I get to go out online on your boat all the time and watch you guys, and you give great tutorials on not only how to catch these guys, but how to process them. And that's what I saw. You were fishing with a client the other day, and you're like, oh, hold on. And you kept it out over the boat, let it do its thing.
Yeah.
And then brought them in. But yeah, no, it's pretty entertaining watching you. And I should tell you guys too, if you want to learn a little bit more about PK, specializes in salmon, squid. I mean, very few people specialize in actual squidding. Okay, specializes in salmon, squidding, crabs. Like that's entertaining too. Watching you guys, take your clients out and getting just I don't know where you go. It might be a secret, but you catch a ton of crabs, and then bottom fish. So those are your four main things that you're getting clients into. But you ever have an opportunity to get out on his boat, take it, do it, book him. You'll have fun, and he's a pretty smart guy too. You always learn something.
Thank
around
you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, teach us how to catch these guys.
Yeah. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about the regulations and seasons first.
Yeah.
And so, squid is kind of an interesting fishery in that it's actually open year round. Okay, just like our flounder, right? And so. But relatively not a lot of people fish for them year round, right? And so like when summer is going, you ask me to take you squid fishing, and I'll politely, respectfully decline because we've got other quarry to chase, right? Yeah. But that's why we like to chase them in the wintertime because A, they're more prevalent, B, they're larger, and C, because of those blackmouth fisheries kind of dwindling down, it gives us something to do. And so we love getting out for these things. So the limit is 10 pounds per angler. A valid shellfish license or a saltwater license is the only thing that's required for you to have with you. And so how we've measured 10 pounds, it's a really great way to do it based on having these little dollar store waste receptacles. And so this is great because that ink that does end up staining, we like to use these because what it does is it contains a squid. We put this inside of a larger bucket with a bungee cord. We hang that over the gunnel and then put their squid catches right into this, from the salt water.
Yep.
Let them squirt out there once, twice, three times away from you in the boat, and then turn the squid jig upside down, give it a good shake, and then the squid will kind of deploy right into that mesh basket. Okay.
Are you bleeding them out or mounting them? Or?
No need to do that. No need to do that. They'll just eventually, since they don't have a fatty liver, really they kind of just end up just breathing and just kind of falling asleep after a little bit. So we know that 10 pounds is up to about this line up here, but we've got a scale. We can measure that, and then that way you don't have the ink or the salt water to give you a false weight. It's just more of a net weight of 10 pounds.
And your limit per angler has to be separate.
It does.
Kind of like shrimp.
Each angler is required to carry, kind of like razor clams, their own container. So we've got 6 or 8 of these on the boat, so that each angler will have their own separate container to measure their catch.
Now, when I learned about squidding in the Pacific Northwest, I saw people all over these different piers at night with big floodlights into the water, and they're fishing in the dark. I've seen you out in the daylight. Now these are you can fish for these during the day as well, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big big mystery that I've dispelled. And the people ask me all the time, "Can you really catch them during the daytime?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely."
Yeah.
I mean, it's no different than any other fish species out in the sound that you can catch at night or day, right? And so there are periods of time where the nighttime ends up favoring a little bit more conducive squid jigging or activity. So that's why we kind of run a duality between the day and night. We want to optimize the time frame where it's going to be the most opportune for our guests that step aboard with us.
Are you catching them in the same spot at the nighttime than you are the daytime?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes it's really. I call this type of fishing, especially when you're doing it from the boat, more like hunting than actual fishing, because we are incorporating and utilizing our electronics, our sonar, our GPS, as well as a very sophisticated anchoring system, in order to isolate and hover, essentially landing on top of these squid, because they do move, and they do move very quickly. So we're there to intercept them, whether either hunting or feeding, or they're getting ready to lay their eggs.
So I know you're a fishing guide, and you guide for other species too. Like I just mentioned, you mentioned these guys are in the Puget Sound year around. So am I safe to assume that salmon are feeding on these guys?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's why we see the hoochie imitations that are sold at John's Sporting Goods.
Yeah.
Those imitate the real
baby
deal.
squid.
The spoons imitate the herring.
Okay.
Right? And so these salmon depend on squid and herring, two vital ingredients in our sound that are here all year around. Okay, so there's a reason for that. That's why tackle is so important to match the hatch, right? And
so these guys, they're not necessarily migrating into the Puget Sound. They're just coming into
they're coming into spawn. They're coming into spawn.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
so they're easier to target a little bit.
Correct. They end up coming up into the shallower waters where that interface is. Downtown Seattle's one area, just because they're drawn to the lights of the city, because they want to make sure when they deposit their eggs on the bottom of the Puget Sound floor that the pair of larvae, when hatched, I think it's the size of a rice granule, these things migrate up from the bottom of the Puget Sound floor multiple times a day to feed on the microinvertebrates, the krill, the phytoplankton, the zooplankton, and because they've got to eat as soon as they hatch. Kind of like a baby spider, if you've ever seen that, right? So
interesting.
Told you guys are going to learn something from this guy. He's super smart.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Here's your marine biology lesson of the day.
No kidding.
So what we use to intercept these squid are what's called a squid jig. Okay, and so these are glow in the dark jigs. They vary in size and color and weight. But one common theme that they have between them, and I don't know if you guys can see that in the camera, is they've got a series of what's called umbrella hooks that run the circumference of the actual jig itself. The jig is, it's got lead in the center core, but then there's glow and UV elements to them. There's mylar, there's an epoxy coating to them, and then they've got eyelets, both on top and the bottom. And that's there to daisy chain or string them along if you want to run multiple jigs. Now, a dock squidder may only run one or two jigs, because they're going to be probably snagging and losing a lot of jigs on the Puget Sound floor, and then that way they can go back to your sporting goods store and then purchase some more. Absolutely. But when we're on the boat, the regulation allows up to four jigs per rod.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, look at that.
So we've got a series of 4 jigs, and the way I like to rig them up is essentially going from lighter to heavier. You can see the difference in size, as well as the not only the color, but just the weight. Okay, and so I like to daisy chain them together using a piece of 50-pound monofilament between each jig. Okay, and that's not there for the breaking strength or the fact that these squid are gonna chew it up. It's really there to keep everything stiff, everything in line, everything vertical, so that when you're jigging, you don't have the potential heavier 1.5 ounce jig fouling that upper jig, and causing a whole lot of problems, because once we get down, we want to be jigging and then giving a little pop, a little hop, a little action to it. And that's what's rewarding, is because what you do as an angler or a jigger will be directly equating to your success on the boat for that day. So there's a lot of gratification when you take someone who's never done this before out, and they're coming back with a bunch of squid. So it's a lot.
And then
of
you
fun.
even have a 2 to 3 ounce, maybe 4 ounce drop on the bottom.
And I like to use a dropper, especially when we're on the boat, because sometimes we're fishing really deep water, 100 to 125 feet, based on whatever the sounder is saying. And so we need to get down, we need to deploy pretty quickly, and if there's a little bit of tide or current, that factors into play. We don't want a whole lot of scope or blowback. We want to make sure we're right on bottom.
Yeah, this whole rig. I mean,
Yeah.
you got 2 ounces.
Yeah.
I think probably what, an ounce or ounce and a half.
Yeah.
Another
3/4 ounce,
three-quarter.
maybe a half ounce, and then
I mean,
an eighth
that's
of an ounce.
That's a lot of weight.
It's a lot of weight. It's a
Yeah.
lot of weight, and so I found out this one piece rod is just perfect.
Okay.
For this fishery. This is a West Coast Pacific jigging series. One piece rod. It's solid core. This rod, although it looks like a trout rod, it looks very, very, very lightweight, which it is. It's only 6 ounces. This thing has caught like 20-pound lingcod down to really small squid, right? Because it's so sensitive, but it's very stout enough to handle that. Okay, I think it's got a lifetime warranty on it too. So it's pretty awesome. I usually made it to a 3,000 or 4,000 series spinning reel. I love using spinning reels on the boat because not everyone's a right hand or left hand retrieve, and this allows you to switch either direction.
Sure.
And so with that, the main line's about a 15-pound braid. I love braid because of the low stretch and the high touch. Okay, so this is a touch fishery. That's what I call it because you need a sensitive rod to begin with, and then you need a good enough line to really fill the strikes. Okay, they won't bite like a traditional finfish. They won't tug their heads or shake. What you'll do is once you impart that jigging technique on that drop, you want to wait, give it a little bit of a pause, and then give it a little hop. Okay, not a high jig because then it's going to just escalate through that rod length. Just a little tickle, as I like to say or describe. So on that next up, fishermen will feel just kind of like a really heavy, dense weight to it, almost double of what's on there. Once you know that that's on, then you'll just kind of steadily reel up. Yeah.
Wow.
You bring a whole other perspective to catching a double. Have you ever hooked up a quadruple?
Oh yeah. So I think our boat record has been six squid on a that was at that time a 3 jig set. So I think we caught a 7. We caught 7 of them actually on a 4 jig set.
Wild.
Yeah, but that doesn't count us. When we're on the boat, that's just for guests.
How big are these guys usually? Like ranging?
This last season, I think in November, we measured one 16 and a half inches. Yeah, pretty good size. Yeah, so
that's a good one.
From the tip of the mantle to the very end of the reacher arm. So probably 16 and a half inches. Right around that.
That's
big.
A good one.
Yeah, it's a good size,
that's
right?
A good one.
Much smaller than our Humboldts that we were catching in November up in Canada, but super delicious, super fun to catch, and you never know what you're gonna get, right? And so it's great when you bring in one of those big ones.
So speaking about anatomy, is there anything that we got to be careful about? Because I know some of these guys have really sharp beaks. Is this so? Someone that's going out and squidding for the first time or doesn't have a lot of experience, and they start catching these. Specifically, how you handle them? Is there anything to be aware of?
Yeah, so they do have that hard beak-like mouth. It's in the center of the set of tentacles, and so generally you just got to keep your fingers away from that. You don't want to get grabbed on by one of those. Now, they won't have the club hooks or the actual. Some of these other varieties of Humboldt squids actually have hooks on their tentacles as well, and so they'll shred your skin. I mean, they'll completely shred it. If it's not that. It's the beak that'll get you, and it'll break the skin. It'll cause an infection, and you want to make sure you don't want to get anywhere near that. No. So the way I tell everyone to handle the squid is by the jig and jig alone.
Okay.
Not by the leader, not by the main line. Handle when you get a squid online. You want to grab the squid and just turn it upside down and just give it a good shake, and then
into the bucket.
It'll just
there you go.
fall right into that basket. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you is it more that you're on that upswing? Are you almost? He's attacking this jig, and you're just not snagging.
Not really snagging it. Yeah. So a lot of times, just like salmon, if you're dropping a iron for a salmon, they grab it on the down.
Okay.
And so we've seen videos of these things, and sometimes it's when you're doing nothing. It's on the down, and then you just leave it doing nothing. Okay. And they've come around. They think it's like something nice to eat, like a shrimp or a fish, and they'll wrap their tentacles around that series of umbrella hooks. They won't be able to get away from that, and on that next jig up, that's when you'll feel that weight. Okay, so then you reel. So there's sometimes when there'll be occasion when you do snag them. But you can still they're all fair game to keep.
Yeah, that was my next question.
But pretty rare.
What are these squid jigs representing? Is it shrimp?
Shrimp.
Okay.
Yep, shrimp.
Fair enough.
Yep, mostly
Is
shrimp.
that their primary diet?
Yep.
Okay.
So like the coon stripe, the dog shrimp. I mean, they have a iridescence to them too. Have you seen their eyes kind of glow?
Yeah.
And so that's the whole reasoning behind these squid jigs.
Very nice.
Now, Connor,
Yes.
as far as a setup like this, someone wants to go out squinting, you sell something similar to this at the shop?
Yeah, it's an Akuma Kaimar, I believe. Yes,
It's a
it is.
C40. This one's a C40, which is the evolution of the Samar or Kaimar.
Yep. So I sell those. I definitely have a rod similar to this. I don't sell the West Coast jigging rods.
Okay.
But I have something absolutely similar.
okay.
You're talking, I think this might be the kind of higher speed Kaimar, but you're talking $80 to $100 reel.
Okay.
Your rod's probably going to be anywhere from $50 to $100, and then squid jigs, I think I sell them for they're between $8 and $11. I sell the SMI Bomac squid jigs, the Atoris, and then I also sell Fisherman's Gold.
Okay. Now, my son's really into this. And so I see him doing, his prep work when he goes out squidding. Do you have to charge these things up to glow, get them to glow?
So when we're out at night, we just use our overhead lights mostly because we're running about 300,000 lumens. We have a generator as well as like some overhead lights on the boat, and that's enough to charge these up.
Okay.
But when we're out in the day, there's a great new product one of our friends have developed. It's called a glow tube.
Oh, yeah, we
and
know
it's
the glow tube.
and I should have brought that. I didn't have that with me, but you got to check that out. It's a portable device. It's got its own power source, and you can charge it up. And it's got like 300 plus LEDs. That's all saltwater sealed.
Okay.
You can just essentially drop your flasher or spoon or squid jig into this device.
Okay.
Give it a 4-second charge, and it's ready to go.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
that black UV light, it charges glow way faster than say just your regular sunlight
Exactly.
or even an LED
UV.
light.
Exactly.
Yep.
Good.
Or a little flashlight that you're trying to do. Or some people have used like camera flashes to incorporate that. But this allows for a real quick, because as you can see, these are 360 degrees all the way around.
Yeah.
A flasher's going to be, it's going to need that. A spoon's going to need that. If you have a glow back, really good item to have on your boat to supercharge your lures,
Absolutely.
and jigs.
Okay. Well, I'm ready to go.
I got
That'd be fun.
I'm thinking all these questions.
Yeah.
Whenever I Paul, I want to ask questions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What is the ideal way to prepare these as far as table fare?
Yeah. So fresh is best, obviously.
Yeah.
You can deep fry them, which is associated with a lot of things, but get out of the box and then be creative. Come up with different recipes. When I started doing this, our friend Chef Taichi, who is a James Beard chef at a local sushi restaurant in Seattle. He prepared them several different ways, nigiri style, sashimi style. We had some stir fry, and it's all delicious. I don't know if there's any seafood in Washington that is not good when it's served fresh. Right?
Yeah. Now, one more. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Are we allowed to use these squid for bait?
Yes.
So say you catch them.
Yep.
You catch and you vacuum pack and freeze it. Say later on when we're fishing for flounders or something, we can use these for bait.
Hands down, it's like
I saw it.
It makes some of the best bait. Okay. So number one, do it because you can enjoy it and share it with your family for a meal. But if you do end up having extra available, halibut bait.
Really?
I rig up all of my halibut rigs, with a halibut hot dog. I don't know if you've ever heard that term. Okay, so
I think I know.
A squid with a black label herring.
Nice.
We can talk about that on another show. But get some stretchy thread, wrap that around all of your pre-rigged hoochies, and you have them ready to go.
Really?
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you can drop those down, and that's a lot of fun too, because they just send out an amazing amount of scent to them. They're super fastidious in terms of their longevity, because they've got that kind of a chewier texture.
Durability.
We've caught thousands of flounders using just a little strip of squid.
Would you brine them at all, or put them in salt to thicken it?
We've
or
taken them
toughen
offshore
it?
too, and we've used them like for tuna fishing too.
Okay.
And then we've chopped them up and then added a little Procure
Yeah.
color or scent to them and turn them a little pink.
Yep.
And you throw them over just kind of like as if you're brailing bait, and it keeps the tuna closer to the boat too. So yeah.
Yeah, I
we've done
remember last year we lingcod fished together, and I brought my famous the gulp sandworms.
that. Oh, that's right.
And Paul pulls out these squid, and I'm telling you, he's catching 5 to my. I mean, it was. I ended up using.
Do we need to cut? Do we need to cut this out of the podcast? It's super secret.
I ended up using the squid. I can tell you that.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you learn. So we live down on Richmond Beach, and Hudson was out in his little 12-foot beater aluminum last winter, and there were some commercial crabbers out there.
Oh, yeah.
And so I love Hudson. He's just curious, and he's just such a nice kid. So he goes petering up to this big, huge commercial boat, and they're like, "Hey, what's up, little buddy?" And Hudson's like, "What you up to?" And they're like, "Oh, just crabbing." And he was like, "Hey, what you guys use for bait?" And he was like, "You guys want to know a secret?" And that's what the captain said. He uses clams, and squid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And he goes, and Hudson comes all the way back in. He goes, "Dad, they use." So
That's awesome.
it's like, I don't doubt it. Yeah.
And some of our best crabbing was done this past winter season because of those 2 ingredients.
Really? Yeah.
And so, we'll talk about that at the boat show. I do a seminar on that. And
So speaking of, and I want to, now that we've taught you a lot about squidding, just book Captain Paul Kim. Go out. So I always share this. I got no secrets. I got nothing to hide. I'm super transparent. I learned how to kokanee fish because I hired a guide, and I was transparent with the guy. I said, "Listen, I got a 5-year-old kid, and I can't catch a kokanee to save my life. So I'm going to hire you. I'm going to give you a really good tip, but use today to teach me, will you?" And he was like, "Oh, yeah, no problem, Dan." Did the same thing for salmon. I've done the same thing. So, hire a guy like him. One, you're going to have a ton of fun. Number 2, you're going to learn a lot. But this is something where you can, watching these videos and hiring guys like Captain Paul Kim, it's a shortcut to success versus spending years trying to figure it out on your own. And there's nothing wrong with a little humility and going out and hiring guys like this. But that's what I love about you, PK, is you're an educator too. So speaking of the boat show coming up, you always are coming into the John's group and freely educating us. So in January every year, end of January, early February, you are down as a guest speaker at the boat show. Tell us a little about that and what you're going to be teaching.
Yeah, so we'll be back at the boat show this year, 2025 boat show, and we're going to be giving a few seminars here. We'll be giving a squid seminar, how to rig up your boat, what to look for on the sonar, with lots of really great content that you will for sure learn something new, I guarantee you. So we'll be having that. We'll also have a couple more seminars on crabbing, high impact crabbing. I'm talking everyone knows generally how to crab, but we're going to show you some secrets. We're going to show you some other tips that we do as a charter, as a professional guide service that is sure to help you put more crab onto your decks, right? And so you'll want to check that out. And then the last seminar that we're going to be giving is on this very new technology. I call it digital anchoring, okay? And this is utilizing this GPS technology and these new guided GPS bow-mounted motors. And so you're going to see more of these coming out on vessels here in the Northwest. I mean, it's a huge thing on the East Coast. And if you see any center console or many of the boats on the East Coast, Florida, down in the Gulf area, they're all running these electric spot lock anchors.
Cool.
Okay? And so very cool technology that you'll want to check out.
Yeah, you want to go listen to his crabbing. If you crabbed and you're not putting as many crab as you'd like in the boat, I can promise you, and I'm not going to share anything here with you right now, but you'll learn something and you'll up your illegal crab limits. I promise you by listening to this guy. So Seattle Boat Show. Pay attention. If you're not in the John Sporting Goods community, get in that group. We bring PK in all the time. We're going to be doing a couple of seminars as we head into this 2025 fishing season, and we always love having Paul there. Connor, any parting words?
No, I learned a lot. You can get all this stuff at my store. I can run you through how to do all this, put line on your reel. I can even, as far as rig it for you. That's all I can think of. I have all this stuff available.
Yeah, be sure to support local, and hope to see you guys on the water.
Yeah, one last thing. Tell us about your boat, because this is a really unique boat. We got to go out on this. We'll close with this. We're going to get you Captain Paul Kim's contact info, put it up on the screen right now. But tell us about, you've got one of the most unique fishing vessels that is so awesome for customers.
Yeah. So thanks. We love the boat quite a bit. It's a handmade boat from Lee Shore boat builders in Port Angeles. So this is a very unique hull. I think it's the only one that they've made here. They've made actually a couple, but the other one ended up in Alaska, or the other few ended up in Alaska, and I think I've got the only hull in Washington State. So very heavy gauge aluminum boat. They're a builder of commercial boats for the shell fishing and other fishing industry. But I actually contracted them to build a custom boat. So it's a catamaran, which offers superior stability. It's a walk-around pilot house, which is nice because we can kind of space out. You're not just kind of isolated to the rear deck. And then it's really got a unique feature. It's got a side opening door. I think you got that on your new boat too. And so you'll find how useful that is, especially for our mobility limited and our younger clients. We don't have to climb over a high gunnel. They can just step dock level right onto the boat, which makes it really super comfortable and easy to fish from.
Yeah, it's a beautiful and safe vessel. So make sure you look him up. You can go to fishpnw.com, reach out to Captain Paul Kim for more info. Again, like PK just said too, support as much as you can, support local businesses. That's why I do this podcast, you guys, and I feature local people that have made an impact in my life and my friends' lives. And Connor and his team down at John's just do an incredible job. You will go in there and buy equipment and gear, and you'll come out, if you don't know, and be humble enough to say, hey, I could use some help, and he'll tie this up. Your Uncle John used to do that for me. In fact, he's the one that taught me how to merge mono and braid, and I was humble enough just to say, I've never done this knot before, and he was like, don't worry about it, Dan, I got you. So these guys are absolutely great resources. Great job, you guys. This was fun.
Yeah. Thanks for having us again.
We'll see you guys real soon with another outdoor edition of the Happy Homeowner Podcast. See ya.
Fish on.